On October 29, 1929, the stock market crashed. That was not the cause, it was the tipping point of the decline of the American economy. We interviewed Miss Margie Jackson about what life was like in rural Arkansas during the Great Depression. During the Great Depression, making money was more difficult for most families. Men, women, and children could work in a field all day and bring home less than $1 for their work.
It probably cost at least a quarter.
Mm-hmm. But back then, a quarter was a lot.
That was half a day's work.
Mm-hmm.
They got 50 cents a day.
Now,
that sounds horrible, doesn't it?
No, well, not then.
And when I helped them, I got a quarter.
Due to financial hardships, many children were forced to quit school and join the workforce as means to help their families. Miss Jackson, however, was given the rare privilege of being able to finish her education.
And I got a job down there in a cafe and worked for a while.
While you were in school?
No, after I finished school.
After you graduated.
After I graduated, we moved down there because they wanted me to finish school because nobody else in the family had ever finished.
That's nice.
In both families. So I was kind of different.
Roosevelt had several different New Deal programs, but his best-known program was the WPA, or the Works Progress Administration, because it impacted the lives of over 8.5 million American workers. These public workers built infrastructure, public parks, and airports for an average of $41.57 a month.
Well, one of them started the WPA, and that gave the people some place to work. They didn't make much, but they made more than they did helping the farmers.
Did FDR start that? I don't know if he started that. I know he did the New Deal.
That's part of it.
That was part of it?
I think so. And everybody had a favorite name for WPA. We piddle around.
But it was like a Job Corps thing.
Yeah, you'd go by where some of them people was working and they'd be standing there leaning on a shovel. That's where it got its name.
The Depression took its toll on many people's families due to the financial struggles that they faced, even in the midst of the New Deal programs.
His older brother passed away, and then his wife, she remarried, and then she hung herself. Nobody ever knew why. She was an ornery old girl. And they always thought that she had poisoned her husband. I don't know. I just remember that part of it. But she hung herself out in the barn. And Joelma, one of it wasn't her oldest daughter, it was her youngest daughter, came in from school and could see her dress through the cracks in the barn. And she went out and found her. And that girl was never completely normal after that.
Later, many family members believe that she committed suicide either out of financial stress or from guilt from killing her husband. The Great Depression was so devastating that many could not even afford to go and get their hair trimmed.
But we had more fun.
I bet.
The kids in the country on Saturdays, if they need a haircut, out in the shade of the house, my mom and dad would put a couple of chairs, and they'd cut hair.
And they weren't barbers.
Oh, no.
Nobody could go to the beauty shop or the barber shop hardly. They had to have somebody else cut it.
Did they pay him to cut their hair, or did they just do it?
No, they didn't have any money to pay with. They would just come down there and on Saturday afternoon and sometimes through the morning too, if there's very many of them needed.
They cleaned up the neighborhood, it sounds like. It's nice.
Miss Jackson's family was better off than most during the Depression. Because of this, many of her relatives would come and stay with them for extended periods of time.
People were always coming in and staying with us, they said, for a while, but they would actually move in with us and stay for 2 or 3 months. And I was always that little girl that asked them when they was going home.
Yep, that's Granny.
I got in more trouble for that. You see, when they came to see us, we only had 2 beds, and I slept in one and Grandpa over in the other one. But when company came, especially in cold weather, I had to go to the foot of the other bed, and those people that came slept in where I was sleeping. So I had to sleep with feet in my face all the time.
She did not want. I'd want those people to leave too.
And that's not such a good way to sleep.
Stinky.
But if they had any kids, they had to sleep down there with me. Now if it was summer, we could sleep on a quilt on the floor or out on the porch. Sometimes it was cooler outside.
After the Depression, the economy was struggling. These struggles continued during World War II, while many men were being drafted and sent to battle. Some of these men married quickly before their service began from fear of not returning. Mr. Riley Jackson, my great-grandfather, was one of these men, and like these men, when he returned, the marriage ended in divorce.
My aunt, who was my uncle's wife, and he was in service, and she worked up at this restaurant. So after I got home from work in the afternoon, I'd go up there and get a sandwich for supper. So one day I walked in and she said, "We got a new cook." I said, "Well, you needed one, didn't you?" And he was standing over behind the counter, and he looked over there. He said, "I know her. I went to school with her." Well, I didn't know him from Adam because he had changed a lot. And
lots of tattoos.
Yeah, he came over and talked to me.
Yeah, he had tattoos.
And then we went out a few times, and then eventually got married.
Nana said he was married before he left to go to the war. How do you feel about that?
That wasn't my problem, that was his.
Margie Jackson's husband, Riley Jackson, passed away in 1998, but Margie is currently residing in Sheridan, Arkansas, in the house they built together and raised their 4 children in.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see, no, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So